So, do you have a message to share, but it feels like no one's paying attention? If so, let's change that today. I want to share with you my 3 favorite ways to get free traffic. Let's get started. Hey Messenger, welcome to the Market Your Message Show. I'm Jonathan Milligan, author of the book Your Message Matters, and our goal here is to help you rise above the noise and get paid for what you know. Now in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about my 3 favorite ways to get free traffic. In fact, here's what you're going to discover in this episode. We're going to talk about what an old-fashioned water pump has to do with SEO traffic. And even if you don't know what SEO means, we'll explain it today. Or we're also going to be covering my #1 secret to getting search engine traffic to your website on autopilot. We're going to talk about the #1 biggest mistake most people make with social media marketing and much, much more. But first, maybe you're like, Jonathan, where do I get started? I'm still trying to figure this whole thing out. I want to build a business online. I have a story, a passion, or a message to share, but I don't know my audience. I don't know how I show up best. I just don't even know where to get started. Well, we've put together a simple 10-page guide called the Discover Your Message Blueprint. And the goal is to help you walk through these exercises to help you discover your purpose, your people, and your passion. And when you can answer those 3 things, you have put together the perfect business. Whether you want to write, teach, speak, coach, podcast, blog, YouTube, to be a YouTuber, or just live stream show, you can use this guide to help you get started. So just go to marketyourmessage.com/discover. All right, let me kick off with a story. So growing up in the Midwest, I spent many summers in the country. My grandparents owned a piece of land in northern Indiana and little old Tipton, Indiana. Now, one day while my family and I were visiting, I came across an old-fashioned water pump on the property. On the property, my grandparents had an old barn, a couple horses, and we were surrounded by cornfields. But there was this old-fashioned water pump, and as a little kid, I'd never seen one before. Not knowing how it worked, I asked my grandfather for help, and he said, you have to manually pump the handle over and over again for several minutes until the water comes out. Well, I grabbed the handle as most kids would, and I started pumping away. I mean, I was giving it all I had. After 30 seconds of effort, I got tired and quit. No, said my grandpa, you can't give up that easy. You gotta keep going. Well, since my arm was already tired, I tried using the other arm, and after another 30 seconds or so, to my surprise, water came out. I stopped pumping the handle and the water stopped. And my grandpa said, you have to keep pumping, son. But the good news is that once the water starts flowing, you don't have to pump as hard. You can ease up and let it flow. Now, I'll never forget that day because I did something that felt difficult, but I kept going and succeeded. Now, here's the point. Every messenger's ultimate dream is to have loads of free traffic to just come into your site every single day, whether you're working or not. But have you discovered it's not as easy as if you blog it, they will come, or if you podcast it, they will come, or if you record the video, they will come. Yet sources of free traffic are much like an old water pump. You won't see immediate results from them, but disciplined action over time will lead to free traffic flowing onto your site. Investing that time today will lead to greater results later. See, here's the deal. I've been working at this for over 10 years now. And the good news is now every day, whether I'm working or not, thousands of new visitors come onto my sites, and they come via past old content that I've created. And when it comes to free traffic, I want to teach you today 3 strategies. Are you ready? Search, social, and subscriber. Now, each of these sources takes time to build up. It's like that old-fashioned water pump. But once you've done it, consistently adding new leads into your business becomes easier. So let's look at each of these one by one. I want to first talk about free traffic, which is search traffic. Now, the goal is for your website to show up in the list of results that people get when they do an online search. Now, search traffic originates anywhere a web search user is seeking information, ideas, or answers online. Now, this is where you have an advantage over every other business out there. This is the big secret that a lot of people aren't taking advantage of. You see, by regularly publishing blog posts, podcasts, and videos, you have a greater chance of showing up in the search engines. Have you thought about it? If you just have a website that has 1 to 2 pages, you don't have a lot for the search engines to give you traffic. But if you've got thousands of pages over the years, you have lots of ways for people to show up on your website. Now, while people oftentimes what they'll do is businesses will pay for ads to show up in the search results. We've seen that when we do searches on Google. But wouldn't you rather just show up there for free and get targeted traffic every single day? You see, by creating keyword-rich content, also known as blog posts, you'll give yourself a greater chance of showing up at the top of the search results. That content originates via 2 steps. So this is the thing. If you want to get free traffic to your website, you got to answer these 2 steps. Ready? Number 1, discover the questions people in your niche are asking. I know, complicated, right? And then number 2, create content that answers their questions. Think about it. Most people use a search engine to find an answer to a question. Now, I get asked this all the time. Jonathan, is blogging dead? Like, I've been asked if blogging's dead for probably the last 8 years. I hear it every single month. And the answer is no. And here's why. We just don't realize that we're falling upon blogs. Every time you do a search in Google and you click on a link, guess what you're doing? You're falling on a page that somebody created. Every time you're on Pinterest and you click on a Pinterest pin to go look at that home design element or look at that recipe, that's somebody's blog post they created. Every single time you use Google, you're falling upon somebody's blog post. Now, whether you call it an article or a web page, doesn't matter. Is this making sense? Here's the deal. If you can answer the question in your content, you gain a fan and possibly a subscriber or customer for life. This right here, what I'm sharing with you, was the unique advantage I had when I launched my first blog on career coaching. I had committed to answering all the career-related questions that accounting professionals had. The blog post I published included things like, how long should a resume be? Should I use a chronological or functional resume format? How do I get my foot in the door for a job interview? How should I handle a panel interview? What should I do if I went on a job interview but I've heard nothing? When people search that in Google, they fell upon my blog. In fact, people still, even though I wrote those articles 9 years ago, every single day fall upon my articles when they do similar searches. That's how you get free, consistent traffic, whether you're working or not. Now, when I first started out, I didn't know the questions. I didn't know what they were. And maybe you feel that way too. On top of that, I didn't even know the answer to every career-related question every accounting professional might have. But I made it my business to find out. So let me give you a perfect example. A great place to start. If you're wondering, Jonathan, where do I go? Give me an example. Go visit this website today, answerthepublic.com. And just to give you an example, put in the word woodworking. I did it earlier today, and guess what I found out? The website gave me 79 questions. Now, what this website does is it collects questions that people are asking Google and handed them to you on a silver platter. You can literally download it as a CSV file And if I had a woodworking blog or podcast or video channel, I would definitely use those questions and create content around those questions because that's what people are searching for. Is this making sense? I hope so. Now, you can also ask people to submit questions on social media. Just say, hey, what's your biggest questions when it comes to X, whatever your niche is? Find a forum, ask people, or even consider sending out a survey. You see, even though I had a tiny mailing list when I first got started, probably less than 100 people, I sent out a survey and asked them to share with me their biggest career-related questions. And guess what? People responded. And I used that first batch of responses to create my content over the next year. If you take similar steps, over time, your website, listen, is going to become this fantastic reservoir of answers. You'll have a body of work that you can freely share with others, and you'll create leverage with your advice and expertise. So that, my friend, is number one. My favorite free traffic source is search traffic. Social traffic is number two. Now, you've probably already noticed that social media can become a time thief if you're not careful, right? We can waste hours upon hours just diving into social media and also just trying to be everywhere at once. And that was the problem I had. I wanted to be over here on LinkedIn. I wanted to be over here on Twitter all the time. And I wanted to be in all those places. But I reached no one because all that effort was just expended out. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're standing at the beach and you're standing before the ocean and you're holding, let's say a bottle of water. You've got a bottle of water in one hand, and let's say you have a tiny vial of ink in the other. Now, the ink represents the impact you can make with the time, energy, and effort, and the sources of water represent those who can hear your message. Okay, follow along with me. We're going somewhere. Now, let's say you have two choices. You can either pour that vial of ink into the ocean, or you can pour it into a glass of water. Let me ask you a question. Which action leads to a more significant impact on the water? The obvious answer is that you should pour the ink into the glass of water, right? Into the bottle of water. Similarly, if you look at social media, you're better off to pick one social media channel and go deep, pouring your time and energy into that one channel, rather than diluting your potential impact by spreading yourself way too thin. So the question really is, on which social media platform is your audience hanging out the most? That is where you should start. If they're hanging out on Facebook, do Facebook. If they're more on LinkedIn, go to LinkedIn. If they're on Pinterest, focus on Pinterest, and so on. In fact, I want you to do this. Just try this out for 30 days. Do a 30-day experiment. Select only one social media channel and decide to go all in learning that platform for 30 days. In fact, I want you to intentionally ignore the other social platforms for now. You know, it's kind of like fishing. Think about this. You're on a search for a perfect fishing spot. And sometimes you can make a fishing spot the perfect spot by simply putting the effort in, right? So for now, here's what I want you to do. I would rather you put several poles in the water in one pond than to put one pole in all these various ponds, right? We need to give ourselves the greatest chance of success, and we do that when we focus on one thing at a time. So search traffic, social traffic, and number 3 is subscriber traffic. What do we mean by that? Well, subscriber traffic includes everyone on your mailing list. With just one tap of the send button, you can direct thousands of people to any place you want online. I like to call this traffic you can control. So I can literally send out a single email and say, go check out this blog post. Go watch this new video. Come join the live stream. Go listen to this podcast. and you can get instant eyes on your new pieces of content. If your subscribers like the content, they may also share it on their social media sites, and this in turn will bring new people into your world. These three categories are your best sources of free traffic. Now you might be saying, Jonathan, I only have 25 people on my email list right now. I only have 50, I only have 100. Nurture them. Give them value on an ongoing basis, and they'll keep showing up and they'll keep sharing out. And that's what you want to do. These three sources can yield great results, but you have to put the work in. The problem with most messengers is that they just give up way too soon. They're not actively creating new, fresh content or working on building that email list. Remember, this whole thing is just like farming. To go back to my original analogy, growing up in Indiana, you want to become a farmer. Free traffic is like planting a garden in your backyard. You're not going to get results overnight, but once the green beans grow in your garden, you can add them to your dinner menu anytime you want. And that's the beautiful thing of doing these three things. All right, if you're still like, Jonathan, I don't know where to get started. Where do I go to get started? Well, you want to go to marketyourmessage.com/discover, because this is going to help you to nail down your niche. It's going to help you to know how you show up best, the problem you want to solve, and the people you should serve. So go to marketyourmessage.com/discover. All right. Did you enjoy this episode? Was it helpful to you? If so, would you take a moment and share or subscribe or even review our show? And also, what topics would you like for me to cover in future episodes? Let me know. But until then, never forget, your message matters.